There is something strange about the way most people are raised in this world. From the very beginning, we are taught how to survive, how to fit in, how to obey, how to chase, how to compare, how to compete, how to fear loss, how to seek approval, how to stay busy, and how to keep moving. But very rarely are we taught who we truly are. We are taught to memorize facts, but not to understand consciousness. We are taught to pursue success, but not inner mastery. We are taught to react to the world, but not to observe the mind that is reacting. And because of this, many people grow older without ever becoming truly awake. This forgetting does not happen in one dramatic moment. It happens slowly, through routine, through pressure, through distraction, through constant noise, through emotional wounds, through fear-based living, through the endless repetition of external programming. And after enough time, the person begins to believe that this limited version of themselves is all they are. They forget their inner intelligence. They forget intuition. They forget presence. They forget that there is a deeper part of them, always watching, always knowing, always waiting to be remembered. This is why awakening can feel so powerful. It is not always about learning something brand new. Sometimes, it is about remembering what your soul already knew before the world taught you to forget it. And when that remembering begins, life starts to change. The patterns begin to shift. You begin to notice what you never noticed before. You begin to sense that reality is not silent, that maybe the universe has been speaking all along, and maybe synchronicities are part of that language. A sleeping mind is not evil. It is not broken, but it is vulnerable. When a person does not know how their own mind works, they become easy to influence. If they do not question what enters their consciousness, they absorb suggestions without noticing. If they do not examine their fears, those fears can be used to direct their choices. If they do not know their own inner truth, they become dependent on external voices to tell them what is real. This is one of the most important spiritual lessons a person can understand. Control does not begin with chains. It begins with conditioning. It begins with repetition. It begins with emotional triggers. It begins with fear. Fear of lack. Fear of rejection. Fear of being different. Fear of standing alone. Fear of missing out. Fear of questioning the collective narrative. The sleeping mind lives in reaction. It reacts to news. It reacts to trends. It reacts to conflict. It reacts to approval. It reacts to disapproval. It rarely pauses to ask, what am I feeding my consciousness every day? What beliefs am I carrying that were never truly mine? What part of my identity was chosen, and what part was installed? That is why true awakening is dangerous to systems built on unconsciousness. The moment a person starts observing their own mind, manipulation begins to lose power. The moment they become present, they stop being so easy to direct. The moment they reconnect with intuition, they start feeling when something is off, even before they can explain it logically. And often, this is where synchronicities begin to appear more clearly. Because once the mind becomes less noisy, it becomes easier to notice the signals hidden beneath the noise. The truth is that the human mind is far more powerful than most people have been taught to believe. Most people think of the mind as something small, a tool for remembering appointments, solving problems, and managing everyday life. But the mind is much more than that. The mind gives meaning. The mind interprets reality. The mind directs attention. The mind shapes emotional states. The mind influences the body. The mind filters what we notice and what we ignore. Two people can walk through the same world and live in completely different realities because their inner patterns are different. One mind is trained to see obstacles, betrayal, and fear. Another is trained to see opportunity, guidance, and possibility. The outer world may not have changed, but the lived reality changes because the inner lens changes. What you repeatedly think, what you repeatedly feel, and what you repeatedly believe begins to organize your life. It influences the choices you make, the energy you carry, the people you attract, the risks you take, the signs you notice, and the direction you move in. This is why a powerful mind is not just a mind that knows many things. It is a mind that is disciplined, clear, aware, and aligned. A mind that can observe itself. A mind that does not believe every passing thought. A mind that can choose focus instead of chaos. And when the mind becomes more ordered, something beautiful happens. Reality starts feeling more responsive, more alive, more interconnected, more intelligent. The person begins to sense that life is not just random movement. They begin to notice patterns, timing, echoes, mirrors, repeated signs. And that is where synchronicities stop being strange accidents and start becoming part of a deeper relationship between consciousness and reality. One of the deepest shifts that happens during awakening is this. You begin to feel that nothing is truly isolated. At first, life may seem fragmented. Events look separate. People seem disconnected. Your thoughts seem private. Your struggles seem personal. The world appears divided into unrelated pieces. But the deeper you go, the more this illusion begins to dissolve. You begin to see that everything exists in relationship. Thoughts affect emotions. Emotions affect perception. Perception affects behavior. Behavior affects outcomes. Outcomes affect belief. Belief affects future choices. One conversation can change a year. One idea can change a life. One moment of courage can alter a destiny. Even in nature, nothing stands alone. The forest is connected beneath the surface. Oceans move in rhythm with the moon. The body functions through systems working together. The breath affects the nervous system. The heart affects the brain. The inner affects the outer. This is why synchronicities matter so much. They hint at hidden connection. They suggest that reality may be woven together in ways the ordinary mind does not immediately recognize. A random book appears at the exact moment you need an answer. A stranger speaks the words you were silently wrestling with. A repeated symbol follows you through different places and times. A name keeps returning. A pattern repeats until you finally pay attention. To the unconscious mind, these things are dismissed quickly. But to the awakening mind, they feel like windows into a deeper order. Not necessarily an order that is always easy to explain, but an order that can be felt. And once you truly feel this interconnectedness, you no longer live as if you are cut off from life. You begin to live in relationship with it. So what is a synchronicity? The simplest way to say it is this. A synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. It is an event that may look random from the outside, but carries a strong sense of meaning on the inside. And that inner meaning is important, because synchronicity is not just about events lining up. It is about resonance. It is about timing. It is about that unmistakable feeling that something is speaking through the moment. You were thinking deeply about a life decision, and suddenly the same message appears in 3 different places. You have been carrying a silent prayer, and then someone says exactly what your soul needed to hear. You keep seeing the same number, symbol, phrase, or theme during a season of transformation. You meet the right person in a way that seems too precise to dismiss casually. Now, this does not mean every little thing is a cosmic sign. Wisdom matters, discernment matters, but it also does not mean that all meaningful patterns should be reduced to blind chance, just because logic cannot immediately explain them. The modern mind often rushes to dismiss what the soul immediately recognizes, but synchronicities have a certain texture, a certain timing, a certain emotional charge. They carry presence. They stop you for a moment. They make you feel that there is something more going on than ordinary surface reality. And perhaps that is exactly what they are meant to do. Perhaps synchronicities are not always there to give perfect answers. Perhaps sometimes they are there to interrupt sleep, to wake attention, to remind you that life is deeper than routine, to whisper, "Look closer." Because the universe rarely needs to scream at the person who has finally learned how to listen. Many people notice that synchronicities seem to increase during periods of awakening, healing, and deep inner change. Why does this happen? One reason is that awakening makes you more aware. The signs may have always been there, but now your perception is different. You are no longer moving through life in the same state of numb automation. You are more present, more sensitive, more reflective, more open. And because of that, you begin noticing patterns that your previous state of consciousness would have overlooked. Another reason is that awakening creates energetic reorganization. When a person begins questioning old identities, releasing old pain, and turning inward, they become less mechanically driven by unconscious habit. Their field becomes more receptive. Their intuition becomes sharper. Their life starts rearranging itself around new levels of truth. This is often when synchronicities begin appearing like breadcrumbs. A phrase keeps repeating. A song arrives at the right time. A stranger confirms an inner knowing. A dream reflects waking reality. A symbol returns again and again until the person finally stops and asks, "What am I being shown?" It is not always because the universe suddenly started speaking. It may be because the person finally became quiet enough to hear. Awakening is not just about learning spiritual concepts. It is about refinement of perception. It is about becoming less dense internally, less distracted, less reactive, less identified with noise. And in that state, the world begins to feel more alive, more intimate, more communicative. This is why so many people on the spiritual path say the same thing. Once I began to wake up, life began speaking to me in ways I could no longer ignore. To understand synchronicities more deeply, we also need to understand the human mind more honestly. The mind is not just logic. It is not just language. It is not just memory and analysis. The human mind has layers. It has conscious focus, but it also has subconscious patterning. It has rational thought, but it also has symbolic intelligence. It has deliberate reasoning, but it also has intuition, association, emotional memory, and deep sensitivity to meaning. Very often, the subconscious mind detects patterns before the conscious mind can explain them. That is why a synchronicity may affect you deeply, even before you fully understand why. Something in you recognizes significance before language catches up. This is also why dreams, symbols, and repeated themes matter. The deeper mind often communicates through image, feeling, repetition, and symbolic arrangement. The universe may communicate in similar ways because the symbolic language of reality is often felt before it is fully translated. When people are disconnected from themselves, they mistrust this dimension of mind. They only trust what can be measured instantly. But when a person matures spiritually, they begin learning how to work with both logic and intuition, both reason and resonance, both discernment and openness. A balanced mind does not become gullible. It becomes aware. It does not blindly chase signs. It learns how to listen without becoming lost. It learns how to receive without losing clarity. It learns how to let deeper meaning emerge naturally. And perhaps that is the point. The human mind was never meant to function as a closed machine. It was meant to participate in a living, meaningful universe. Now we arrive at one of the most powerful Hermetic ideas of all. The all is mind. The universe is mental. This principle changes everything. If reality is mental in nature, then consciousness is not just a side effect of the universe. It is woven into its foundation. That does not mean your personal ego controls the cosmos. It means mind is deeper than we usually assume. It means inner and outer may not be as separate as they appear. From this perspective, synchronicities begin to make more sense. If the universe is not a dead accidental machine, but a living mental field, then meaningful correspondence between inner states and outer events becomes more imaginable. The barrier between thought, symbol, vibration, and experience becomes less rigid. Hermetic wisdom does not ask us to become irrational. It asks us to become more subtle, more observant, more aware of principles operating beneath appearances. It reminds us that what happens inwardly matters, that consciousness is not passive, that mental states are not spiritually irrelevant. If the universe is mental, then your inner world is not disconnected from reality. Your state of being affects what you notice, what you attract, how you interpret, and how you participate in the pattern of life. This is why awakening begins inside, because the inner world is not a private side room. It is part of the greater field. And as your mind becomes clearer, calmer, more ordered, more aligned, your experience of reality changes with it. From this Hermetic point of view, synchronicities are not just random curiosities. They can be moments where the mental nature of the universe briefly becomes visible through experience. If enough people begin to wake up, the world will change in ways that go far beyond personal spirituality. Because awakening is not only private, it also has collective consequences. A population that is more conscious becomes harder to manipulate. Fear stops working so easily. Division stops working so easily. Empty narratives stop working so easily. People begin asking deeper questions. They stop accepting appearance as truth. They begin thinking, sensing, discerning, and choosing with greater awareness. And when individuals reclaim their minds, systems built on unconsciousness begin to shake. Not necessarily in one dramatic collapse, but gradually, quietly, through millions of people becoming a little harder to deceive, a little less programmable, a little more anchored in truth. More awakened people would also change human relationships. There would be more empathy, because awareness deepens sensitivity. More responsibility, because people would understand that their state affects others. More integrity, because people would no longer be able to betray themselves so casually. And perhaps most importantly, a collective awakening would begin restoring sacredness to life. People would stop moving through existence like disconnected machines. They would begin treating life as meaningful again. Attention would become more intentional. Speech would become more conscious. Choices would become more aligned. This is why every genuine awakening matters, even if it seems small, even if it begins in one person. Because consciousness spreads, clarity spreads, presence spreads, truth spreads. And maybe synchronicities are part of how the universe helps that process unfold. One sign at a time, one interruption at a time, one awakening at a time. So how do we actually work with synchronicities in a grounded and meaningful way? First, slow down. A rushed mind misses what a present mind can see. Synchronicities often appear in the spaces where attention is softer and awareness is deeper. Second, begin observing. Keep a journal. Write down repeating numbers, symbols, dreams, phrases, strange timing, encounters, or patterns that feel meaningful. Not because you want to force meaning onto everything, but because recording patterns helps reveal what the mind would otherwise dismiss. Third, ask better questions. When a synchronicity appears, do not just ask, "What does this mean?" Also ask, "What was I thinking about when this happened? What was I feeling? What season of life am I in? What truth have I been avoiding? What decision am I facing? What pattern keeps returning?" Fourth, stay humble. Not every event is a grand cosmic revelation. Sometimes a clock is just a clock. Sometimes repetition is just repetition. Spiritual maturity includes discernment. The goal is not obsession. The goal is relationship with life. Fifth, align your life. Synchronicities are easiest to understand when your inner world becomes clearer. Meditation helps. Prayer helps. Silence helps. Self-observation helps. Emotional healing helps. A more honest life creates a clearer signal. And finally, remember this. Synchronicities are not meant to replace wisdom. They are not a substitute for responsibility. They are invitations, signals, nudges, mirrors, confirmations, openings. The deeper purpose is not to become addicted to signs. The deeper purpose is to become the kind of person who can hear them, understand them, and walk forward with awareness. Because once you begin living consciously, the universe often stops feeling silent, and life begins to reveal itself as conversation. The more awake you become, the more life stops looking random and starts revealing itself as a living conversation between consciousness and creation. And if these ideas resonate with you, and you feel called to go deeper, we explore these universal laws much more deeply in our Telegram channel and discussion group. That is where we connect, reflect, and share deeper insights together with others who are also walking this path of awakening and understanding. If you would like to join us there, you will find the invite link in the description.